right? 5, presentation from our speaker and panelists. 6, Q&A session. And 7, closing and photo session together. Those are the today's agenda will be presented soon. Dear audiences, the first agenda is opening. Let me read some rule for everyone to pay attention to. First of all, the participant ID in this webinar must use the real name, not device name or the name of institution. Second, participants who get access to Zoom, please turn on your camera and dress modestly and behave politely when the webinar is held. Third, participants will automatically be muted by the host during the webinar. Fourth, all the participants who follow the webinar via Zoom can ask questions in chat by typing question in chat box, by writing name and question in conscious manner. I will deliver the question to the presenters. And fourth, certificate will distribute it to participant register and attend the event from beginning to the end of the webinar. Thank you. We continue to the second agenda, the national anthem of Indonesia Raya. The third agenda is opening remark from the Dean Faculty of Law. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome the Dean Faculty of Law, Universitas Sumatera Utara, Dr. Mahmud Siregar SHM. The screen is yours now, Bapak Dekan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, salam sehat buat kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Honorable Professor of Law at the Universitas Sumatera Utara, Professor Dr. Ningrum Natasha Sirait, SMLA, Honorable Assistant Professor in Criminal Law and Criminology at Groningen University, Master in the Rechten, Dr. Wiene van Hattum, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Universitas Sumatera Utara currently exploring internationalization. So it is hoped that this webinar activity can help accelerate this internationalization. Faculty of Law, Universitas Sumatera Utara fully support the activities carried out by study program that support the performance achievement of Faculty of Law. In Indonesia, Life sentence is one of imprisonment provided for by the Indonesian Criminal Code. Philosophically, a person sentenced to life imprisonment is a person who violates the law. Of course, feels suffering. Life imprisonment, like capital punishment, is basically a type of absolute punishment. Life imprisonment means that the sentence is carried out until the end of the convict life in prisons. Life imprisonment is a form of a basic punishment that can be imposed by a judge, which means he can be imposed independently or added to an additional sentence. As part of the crime of deprivation of liberty, life imprisonment contain many paradoxical aspects, which are often debated by legal experts. The persistency of life imprisonment in Indonesian criminal system has been unconditionally accepted by society. So how is the speaker then and panelists view about the life sentence? I hope that the webinar that will be held this afternoon will run successfully and that the participants will gain useful knowledge. Thank you. Wabillahi taufiq walhidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Bapak Dekan. And next, we welcome Head of Doctoral Degree Program, Faculty of Law, Universitas Sumatera Utara, Prof. Ningrum Natasha Sirait. The screen is yours now, Prof.
Thank you, Ibu Sheryl. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, ladies and gentlemen, especially a very warm welcome to you, Wina. We're very glad to have you on board. It's been a long discussion. I'm sure Ibu Devi has been exhaust you with very details on preparation of this session. Through thank you to our mutual friend Pak Rain. Yeah, I guess Rain is currently not in Indonesia. I think he's in Austria by now, and he's been informed that we are going to deliver a speech. When we get in touch with you, it was actually a very surprise topic that you raised, because Indonesia is dealing with death penalties or death sentences, and when we came up to a very different opinion on how to see it. Let me share one small thing with you. It was actually taken. Bapak Ibu, tolong dimatikan Sheryl suara-suara yang off itu. Okay. Well, okay. Wina, are you here with us? Can you hear me now? Are you okay? All right. Tolong dipastikan di off-kan Ibu Sheryl. Yeah. Okay. This is what happened. A great and very famous resource person. Now he's a very great friend of us at the law faculty. Now currently he's sitting as an ambassador in, I think, in Norway. He is also chairing Transparency International. Todung Mulia Lubis. He's a prominent activist of human rights. All right. So when somebody took this as a judicial review to our constitutional court, actually we stood against him, because we, a group of us, still believe in death penalties or death sentences. You will have to differentiate it and explain to us how you view that. And because we're so close, he sort of criticized why we stand it. But at the time, at the constitutional court, we believe that terrorism, corruption, and narcotics are, are eligible for death penalties or life sentences, whatever you want to describe it. So when you brought this issue, we were very surprised. It came back to our memory again, and it'll be your voice, your research, your critics, or your opinion on how we should see it. With that, we, on behalf of the PhD in Law program in Faculty of Law, Universitas Sumatera Utara, we thank you for your willingness to share your talk with us this afternoon. Okay, this is 4 o'clock in Medan time. It's pretty rainy, and Ibu Devi sitting with a very nice cup of tea, and all of us here in this building, and we look forward to hear what's your thoughts about this. Thank you again, Wina, and we look forward for another topics to be shared next year. Thank you, Bu Sheryl. Thank you, Pak Dekan, sudah memberikan sambutan. Kami kembalikan agar kita segera mendengarkan pandangan-pandangan Ibu Wina, dan juga terima kasih sekali untuk Ibu Eva. Mana Ibu Eva ada di sini? Eva Fitri Nasution, saya senang sekali dosen muda kita, calon dokter kita akan menjadi panelis. Ya, harus berani walaupun dengan mungkin agak tidak pede soal bahasa Inggris, but it's okay. Ya, Wina, I think you understand that English is not our main language. So if Eva speaks and needs to be translated, we're here and we're willing to share with you. Makasih Ibu Eva, terima kasih Bu Sheryl. Saya kembalikan forum ini kepada Ibu Sheryl untuk pimpin. Ibu Devi nanti akan menutup ya, Ibu Devi ya. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Prof. Ingrum, for the remarks. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will jump into the presentation from our wonderful speaker, Mr. Inderachtan Winnie van Hattem. Before the delivery presentation, allow me to read the short CV from Ma'am van Hattem. Ma'am van Hattem was Assistant Professor in Criminal Law from Groningen University, Netherlands. Right now, she is President Forum Life Levenslang. Ma'am, you have 30 minutes for presentation. Please welcome Ma'am van Hattem. The floor is yours now, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yeah. And thank you for the kind words that are said just now by the Dean and by Ningren, and for all organization. And I'm very happy that you invited me to do this webinar. 30 minutes is very short. I hope I will have some more time, but if it is exactly 30 minutes, I will have to really to wrap it up. I will show you a PowerPoint and I will share it soon. And I'm also very happy to see so many faces. It's very great to see them. For you, it's afternoon. For me, it's in the morning, gray and rainy too. Well, that's, oh yeah. For you, English is not your main language. For me, it is also not. So my English is not very well. So if you cannot understand me, please ask or raise your hands. Now I will share the screen and I will tell you about the life sentences worldwide, and whether they are a burden or not. Justice or burden? Well, I am already introduced to you. I was assistant professor in criminal law. I retired in 2018, and I'm now president of Forum Levenslang. It is a foundation that it's founded to improve the situation of life prisoners in the Netherlands. We are our topic, our object is the Netherlands, but I worked with Dr. Van Zijl-Smit on research on life imprisonment worldwide, and because, well, you don't have much to do with the Netherlands, I thought it's more interesting to have a look at the situation of life sentences worldwide. And I also will say something about the situation in Indonesia and about the death sentence. This is my overview. I will introduce the topic to you by well, some my own experiences. I will tell you punishment, about the death penalty and life sentences, forms of life imprisonment worldwide, international treaties, and about the case of the Netherlands, as I call it, because the Forum Levenslang, the Dutch Life Imprisonment Foundation, had a case against the Netherlands, not a process, but a case in which we fought for a better situation for life prisoners. And the Forum Levenslang is on the threshold to win this fight, to make our to get our goal. And we can then end up with questions. It all started with the university prison visiting group that I organized from Groningen University to Veenhuizen prison in the Netherlands, where I met 2 life prisoners, Y and C. Y was originally from Turkey and C was originally from China. That's also an aspect from life sentences in the Netherlands. Half of the 50, there are only 50 life prisoners in the Netherlands. Half of them is not originally Dutch, they possibly will be, if they are allowed to be released, they are to be extradited or expelled. These 2 had been detained for a very long time already. This is Veenhuizen prison from the outside. It is from 1900. It is a very nice prison and the prisoners do like it very much because of the courtyard. It is a very open and well, prisoners can walk here in the when they are free, at least 1 hour a day, but mostly there are more times to be out of the cell. So this prison is very beloved by prisoners in the Netherlands. Now, what are the justifications for punishment in general? Well, mainly there are 4 justifications: deterrence, retribution, public safety, and rehabilitation, but all of them are problematic because, first of all, even most sanctions do not always deter. And for retribution, there is no standard. For example, a murder, somebody is dead, you cannot replace it. You cannot make that will replace the deed. So there's the retribution justification is very, very problematic thing. And public safety is only necessary if the person is still a danger to society. When this danger has gone, the penalty should end if the sanction is just for public safety. And rehabilitation is only achieved when there is also individual treatment, and that there's a lack of individual treatment in most prisons. And most sentences sum up several justifications, and those of I, Y, and C, they also summed up these 4, only the first 3 justifications. But Y and C were at the point that deterrence was not a reason anymore. Retribution was already going on for more than 20 years, and public safety was not an issue anymore, because C and Y, they were not assumed as a danger for society. One had been treated, and the other, well, it was not sure. They were treated. One was treated by psychologists and psychiatrists, and the other was also diagnosed not to be dangerous anymore. So the justifications that originally were there to give them this penalty did not exist any longer. That was hard for me to see, that these people had to stay there in prison for their whole life. They had still to go on another 40 years or so. I make a step aside to death penalty, because in Indonesia, as the Dean just said, death penalty, and also Ningren just said, death penalty still exists in Indonesia. It exists in 54 countries of the world, and it is meant to incapacitate the person and for deterrence also. Therefore, in the Netherlands, when death penalty was still used, it was in public. It was on the marketplace. People were hanged on the marketplace. In most Muslim countries, there is still death penalty, and they are most frequently used in China, Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. In Europe, there is a debate on abolishment since 1850. And now it is in the Western Europe, it is the death penalty is abolished completely and forbidden by a protocol to the European Convention on Human Rights. Also in Eastern Europe, the death penalty was abolished since the 1990s. Only in the Western world, the US stands apart, still uses in some countries in the state of the US, it still is used. How is it in Indonesia? What I learned from books is that and from Wikipedia, that the death sentences have been executed still in 2015 and 2016, and it was all on account of drug trafficking, not for murdering or something. And among them, and therefore I think I do know it, there were also Dutch prisoners executed. But the last few years, no executions took place, and there are also non-scheduled. And what I read from the paper is that an official moratorium is about to come. If it's not true, you must tell me so. But your president said that he is a supporter of the idea to have a moratorium on death penalty. Now, life imprisonment. I want to give a definition. It is a sentence following a criminal conviction that gives the state the power to detain the prisoner for life, that is, until he dies in prison. So one can say, is life maybe more harsh than death penalty? Is it a death penalty in the long run? Well, in the Netherlands, that was the idea, a death penalty in the past. In the Netherlands, the government thought death penalty is more harsh than a life sentence is more harsh than death penalty. Therefore, the procedure of pardoning was used a lot. Now I want to also give a more defined definition, because there are formal life sentences and informal life sentences. Formal life sentences are really meant to detain somebody for one's whole life. Informal life sentences are not intended to detain somebody for his whole life, but it is the effect of the sanction that he will be in prison for his whole life. So you can think of several very long sentences that are executed consecutively. A few sentences of each 30 years will take one whole year, one whole life. And there are the safety measures that the measures that, well, are not fixed. They are indefinite because of somebody presents a danger to society. I will not talk about these informal life sentences. I limit this lecture to formal life sentences. And I will give you some figures. In 183 countries of all countries in the world, they know this life sentence. They have it in their law books. Indonesia is one of 4 countries with the highest population worldwide. And the number of lifers, according to my information, is 423. That is 1 out of 600,000 people. It is not 0.5% of the prison population. And half of them is sentenced for homicide, and the other half for drugs and other offenses. This is very low. If it is true, it is from the book. I will I put the name of the book and the authors also on this PowerPoint. If this is true, it is very, very low. I was surprised. So this is Indonesia. Now, as we look at the United States, there's a total number of lifers of 162,000. That is 50 per 100,000. That is 10% of the prison population. And if we compare with the Netherlands, our number, as I already said, is 50. And that is also not very much, but it is twice as much as Indonesia. And that is remarkable, in my opinion. It's very remarkable. And please tell me if these ciphers are not, this information is not correct. I got it from a very, very good book. And I hope they are correct. It means that in Indonesia, punishment is not that severe.
But does it mean that there are many, just many more people in jail for small offenses?
I'm sorry, I could not hear it because there's something. I could not hear the question.
No, I'm trying to, in my mind, to explain why would this be?
Yeah.
So can it be that in Indonesia they're just much easier to put people in jail for small offenses?
Rain,
Yes.
We have not yet get into the Q&A question.
Oh, but in Holland we just always interrupt.
No,
Okay.
we won't allow you to do that. Ibu Sheryl, please control. We need Ibu Eva to present on the Indonesian view, and then we allow all audiences to raise questions.
Yes.
I am very sorry, Ibu Negre.
We have
very sorry.
hello. Okay. Please continue. Ibu Cheryl, please control rain.
Okay, well, as I said, it is remarkable, and of course the question is why. Oh, please, can you mute yourself, Renda? Yeah. The question is, how come? How does it happen? Maybe there are more informal life sentences. I don't know me about that. Informal life sentences like safety measures, maybe. I don't know. But also if it's just life sentences, it's still not very precise, because what means life in law of the country involved and how the sentence is implemented in practice. And is there a possibility of parole? That's very different all over the world. And there are two extremes, and one is symbolic life with parole, LWP, and the other is life without parole, LWOP it's called. By the Americans say LWOP. There are very many LWOPs, so they use the word very often. Well, the symbolic LWP is that there's routinely a parole following the sentence. So this is a reducible life sentence. And then there is the LWOP, that is the life without parole, and it is not reducible. And there are other models in between. For example, the United Kingdom has a tariff system, and the sentencing judge determines the part of the sentence that must be served in prison. So that's the minimum term or the punitive element of the sentence. And then after the offender may only be detained if he continues to present a risk to the public. Now, LWOP and LWP worldwide, in the US, there are 54,000 people do a LWOP at the moment, out of its 162,000 lifers. In the UK, there's both systems, LWP and LWOP. In the Netherlands, it's only LWOP. Although that's about to change, as I started in the beginning, the foundation Forum Levenslang is founded to fight this policy of the government, this LWOP policy. And it is about to change. There is already a law being drafted at the moment. In Indonesia, I read in the book, it's only 423 LWP. So that is no LWOP at all. So along to my information, in Indonesia, every life prisoner will be set free almost routinely. In Norway and Portugal, there are, for example, there are more countries, there are no life sentence at all. Not even for a person like Breivik, who killed more than 70 people in Norway. He did not get a life sentence, but he's now under an informal life sentence, a safety measure. This is a map I took from this book, and here you can see Western Europe and here Eastern of the world, and you see Indonesia is gray with the LWP, and here the Netherlands is dark with the LWOP, and then all the stripes are for systems that have both. The book I told you about is Life Imprisonment, a Global Human Rights Analysis by Dirk van Zijlsmit and Appleton. I will give more information at the end of this PowerPoint. And it also, this book gave me the information that the LWP in Indonesia is practiced as such that there is a good behavior test after at least 1 year, and there is a mutation of the sentence in a fixed term of maximum of 15 years. So it is transformed. The life sentence is transformed in 15, in at least 15 years. Can be more, can be maybe 30 years, I don't know. But parole is rarely denied, so it's almost a symbolic life sentence. I don't know, I heard the dean say that life sentences are for a whole life, but as long to my information, in Indonesia, it is not. It is in the Netherlands, but in Indonesia, it's not. Now, the question is, are states free to do what they like? They put, they have a code that says life prison sentences for some offenses. Can they do what they like? No, the answer is no. There are international treaties, like, and they all say no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. And the most important are Article 5 of the United Nations Universal Declaration, Article 3 of the European Convention for Human Rights, and Article 7 of the International Convention for Civil and Political Rights. This last convention is also can also be signed by states that do have a death penalty. Therefore, Indonesia is also one of the parties to the ICCPR. So also for Indonesia, the rule is no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Now, my research is about the Netherlands, so it's the most about Europe, and it was, but there is jurisprudence from the European Court for Human Rights on Article 3 that says that the scope of life sentence is limited because of three pillars: the human dignity, proportionality, and a possible shift of justifications. And there are three very interesting and important judgments on this matter: Winter against the United Kingdom, Murray against the Netherlands, and Petukov against Ukraine. This is Strasbourg. Because it is a very important decision, I will quote it partly. And it is so important because it's also adopted by the ICCPR. It says the balance between the justifications for detention is not necessarily static and may shift. So those justifications I just showed you in the beginning of this lecture. What may be the primary justification for detention at the start of the sentence may not be so after a lengthy period into the service of the sentence. Well, that's exactly what I saw when I met these two life sentenced people in Veenhuizen prison. It is
Pardon me, ma'am. 5 minutes left.
How many?
5 minutes left.
It's too.
Five.
It's not enough. Okay. Well, then I also can just skip this, and you can read it afterwards. Article 3 must be interpreted as requiring reducibility of the sentence. And consequently, where domestic law does not provide any mechanism or possibility for review of a whole life sentence, the incompatibility with Article 3 on this ground already arises at the moment of the imposition of the whole life sentence. So one cannot even sentence anymore to life imprisonment if that mechanism does not exist. Release on compassionate grounds cannot even be regarded as a release in this sense. As I told you, the ICCPR committee adopted this, and Also, international tribunals do know this. For example, the ICC has the rule that the penalty, life penalty, must be reviewed after 25 years. Now, the case of the Netherlands is that life sentence cannot be commuted by, can only be commuted. Sorry. Oh, welcome, a little baby here. Life sentence can only be commuted by way of pardon. And pardon is an administrative tool used by the minister by way of grace. Well, the Dutch history was LWP, like in Indonesia. And since this century, the ministers choose for the LWOP. That was because of more criminal climate and a more attention for victims' benefits. And the results are dramatic. Well, first of all, there are much more life sentences since 1962 here, 2022. And the number of life prisoners in prison, Dutch prison, rose also dramatically from 1 in the 1970s to now 50, 55. This is the Forum Levenslang I told you about. The Netherlands had to give in because of these two judgments, Winter and Murray. The Supreme Court of the Netherlands concluded that the Dutch law lacks a true review mechanism and the Dutch government must change the law. Are life sentence justice or burden? That was the question that was put to you. Well, my answer is it depends on the chosen formula. Is it LWOP or LWP? How is it? How does it practiced? Is it does it give the prisoners a chance to be released or not? If it does not, it is seriously a burden. These are my sources. Very important. This judgment. I also put a link there. And these are the two books by Van Zijl, Smith, and Appleton, Life Imprisonment and Human Rights. In this book, I also wrote a chapter on the situation in the Netherlands. And this is very interesting because this is a global human rights analysis. And from this book, I got the information about Indonesia. And please tell me if this information is not correct, because I'm very interested to know how the situation is in Indonesia. So I hurried up a little, I speeded up. So I hope it is within the 30 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Van Hattem. Now let we hear the presentation from our panelists, Bu Eva Syafitri Nasution, SHMH. Bu Eva obtained her master's degree from Faculty of Law, Universitas Sumatera Utara, and she is currently pursuing doctoral degree in the Faculty of Law, Universitas Sumatera Utara. Bu Eva, you have 30 minutes for presentation. Please, Bu Eva. The screen is yours now, Bu Eva.
Ibu Eva.
Okay, thank you very much for to Miss Moderator. I will share my presentation first. Let me to share my presentation.
Ibu Cheryl, let Ibu Eva share the. Yeah.
Okay.
Share screen.
co-host at all. Okay. Is my presentation available?
Yeah, we can see it, Bu Eva.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, much obliged to doctoral program, Faculty of Law, Universitas Sumatera Utara, for giving me the opportunity become the panelist in this webinar with the interesting topic that is life sentence, justice, or burden. And I would like to say thank you very much as well to the moderator for giving me opportunity to deliver my presentation about the life sentence, that is life sentence and overview from the sentencing purpose in Indonesia. And then I'm so grateful to see Mr. Inderrechten, Dr. Winnie van Hatum, who already explained the great explanation about life sentence, and then combine or compare the law with Indonesian law about the death penalty, and a deep explanation about the form of life imprisonment in worldwide in Indonesia in general. As Professor Ningrum said before, that English is not my main language, so I'm sorry if there is a missing word to Ma'am Winnie, but I try my best, and I'm sorry for the participant as well. Good afternoon from Indonesia, Madam. And ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I will begin my presentation from the introduction. The introduction, I will try to present it about 4 points why life sentence is very interesting to discuss. There are 4 points. That is, in Indonesia criminal law system, life sentence is still considered relevant as a means of dealing with crime. It can be seen from the number of criminal acts punishable by life sentence. So regardless of pros and cons of the punishment as instrument of criminal prevention, but in the reality, punishment and also life sentence remain used throughout of the history of mankind and practiced in several countries, including Indonesia. So this is the first point. The second one is criminal code tends to retain in life sentence. As we know nowadays, some of legal experts in Indonesia try to make the criminal code itself. So in accordance with the characteristic of Indonesia based on Pancasila and legal values in the society of Indonesia. In Indonesia Penal Code Bill, the renewal of Indonesia Criminal Code, the bill tends to retain life sentences. It can be seen in some of the article in the Indonesian Penal Code Bill. There are several articles which impose the life sentence in the article. of the criminal acts, some criminal acts. This is the second one. And the third point is life sentence must be used as an exception and only to provide a symbol character. So use of the life imprisonment must be used for exception or only to provide a symbol character. Exceptional character is based on the primary of purpose to protecting society from criminal action and behavior that are considered dangerous or detrimental the community. So the fourth point is problems that arise and need to be highlighted are the imposition of life sentence and whether they are in line with the principle of correctional. So life imprisonment can it be in line with the principle of rehabilitation and resocialization became the basic of a correctional institution. Establish a process of resocialization because it's not language forever in the correctional institution. In this regard, it can cause clemency institution are often become a reference for life convicts to fight for this fate. So in our penal code as well, the sentence change can be changed into temporary imprisonment. So in this point, there are mixed pros and cons. So it will be interesting to talk further. Ladies and gentlemen, here is in this slide we can see several numbers of criminal act here. The first is from criminal code, our criminal code, and the second one is the regulation outside the criminal code, or we can say it with special crime, and the third is Indonesia Penal Code Bill. So ladies and gentlemen, here we can say this is true that Professor Ningrum said that the life sentence still exists in Indonesia. So we can see here in our penal code, crime against the security of the state, crime against ruling king or another head of friendly state, crime whereby the general security of person or property is endangered, crime against life, theft by forcing or treating of force against person, extortion and blackmail, crime relating to navigation, and crime relating to aviation facilities still impose the life sentence in this article. So I already put the article here. And then in the regulation, outside the criminal code, we call it with special sentence. There are criminal act of corruption, Article 2, Section 1 and 3, Law number 31 of 1999 on eradication of criminal act of corruption, criminal act of terrorism, criminal act of human rights, criminal act of narcotic, and criminal act of psychotropic is still impose the life sentence in this article, in several articles. Then if we compare it with the penal code bill, Indonesia Penal Code Bill, it will be combined. So from the 13 kind of criminal act become 9 in Penal Code Bill. So it become crime against the security of state. It will be the same, but a different article. And also crimes against life. There are 2 articles there. theft by forcing or threatening of force against person, crime relating to navigation, crime relating to aviation, serious crime against human rights, and criminal act of terrorism. And the last one is criminal act of corruption. So we can see that crimes against ruling king or another head of friendly state is already vanished, is it, or then as it also criminal act of psychotropic. So this is a proof that as Professor Ningrum said that the life sentence is still exists and even in our penal code bill. Dr. Winnie already said that there are several cases of life sentence in Indonesia. Indonesia, we can see the judge consideration, the court decision officially in the Supreme Court. We can see the judge decision or the court decision in Supreme Court website. So here is the some example of decision. Several days ago, I already counted about 20, but here I just give several of them. There are 4 examples of court decision itself. As Dr. Winnie said that most of the case that already decided by the judge, most of them is about narcotics. Most of them is about narcotics. From the 4 example that I already put in this slide. So here is 3 of them is narcotic crimes, criminal act. So it means that most of them in the first is about narcotics, the second one is murder, and the third is narcotic as well, and the fourth is narcotics, criminal act. Ladies and gentlemen, now we want to see life sentence in Indonesia now and then. In the criminal code, life sentence is regulated in Article 12. As a basic punishment, imprisonment can be life or temporary. In the Article 10 of Criminal Code, the first is death penalty, and then imprisonment, then life imprisonment and fine. So the imprisonment punishment is the second position in the Article 10 of Penal Code. The second one is life sentence is any sentence of imprisonment for a crime under which convicted people are to remain in prison for the rest of their life. This is not the criminal code didn't give the definition of the life sentence itself, but the expert give the definition of life sentence. And in the criminal code as well, in the Article 53, the life sentence is imposed upon a crime, a maximum imprisonment of 15 years shall be imposed. This is the regulation in the penal code. Then in the another regulation, life sentence can be changed into temporary imprisonment, maximum imprisonment of 20 years by clemency. So I agree with Winnie said that in Netherlands also it can be so life sentence can be forgiven. The life sentence can be forgiven with the pardon. In Indonesia also, life sentence can be changed into temporary maximum imprisonment of 20 years by clemency. It means like a pardon as well. The clemency is one of extraordinary legal remedies in Indonesia. So, this is the 4 point of the criminal code, and we want to see what is our renewable criminal Indonesia. The first is the convict has served a sentence at the last 15 years sentence can be changed into a maximum imprisonment of 20 years by a presidential decision after obtaining the consideration of Supreme Court. This is the new regulation. And then the base of this idea of the criminal system contain the criminal code bill. It is possible for life imprisonment to obtain parole. This is the new idea of the sentence purpose in Indonesia. First, the life sentence can be changed by the clemency. It decreased into 20 years. But now in the criminal code bill, the convict has served a sentence at least 15 years, they can be changed into maximum imprisonment or 20 years by president decision after obtaining the consideration of Supreme Court. First is doesn't have time how long it will be taken, but now 15 is the time that is given to the prisoner. So in my last slide, I want to talk about why it can be. So our new regulation or our renewal criminal regulation is a little bit move. I say it moved because in the penal code bill, the idea of the purpose, sentence purpose, is a little bit different before. The life sentence is basically an absolute type of punishment. This is true because there is a definite sentence. It is a definite sentence. It has distinct time period characteristic until the end of their life. There are conceptual inconsistencies between the life sentence and the correctional system. First, the life sentence, according to some experts, especially in criminal law experts, say that a life imprisonment is more oriented toward the idea of protecting interests of society, while the imprisonment with a more idea-oriented correctional system, protection or repair or rehabilitation of the convict for return to the society. So some of the experts of criminal law in Indonesia divided into two. They said that life sentence is oriented for protecting interests of the society, and the correctional system is to repair or rehabilitation. So this is the first idea. The emphasis of the correctional system is the idea of rehabilitation to return convict to the society. So, ladies and gentlemen, if the life sentence is still appropriate, the regulation should integrate the idea or concept of operational protection with standard minimum rules for the treatment of prisoner. So, in this our new regulation in Indonesia later, if the life sentence is still exists, the government must give the minimum rules to treat the prisoner who impose the life sentence. Then nowadays, basic idea of the sentencing system in penal code bill based on several principles. So it is possible for life imprisonment to obtain parole and change into temporary imprisonment. Why it can be there? This is because the idea of the sentencing purpose, there are at least 10 ideas of them. The first is there is a balancing idea of monodualistic with the society and individual interests. This is the first one. And the second one is the idea, the balanced idea of the social welfare and social defense. The third one is the balanced idea between the criminal, which oriented to offenders and also victims. So there is a balance there. And then the idea of using double track system in Indonesia. The fifth is effectiveness idea to give alternative to imprisonment. And then the idea of practicity in sentencing. And then the sixth is the idea to modify a sanction or giving the alternative sanction. And then the idea to choose what kind of sentence that given to the offenders. And then the idea of judicial pardon. And the last one is the idea to put the first place justice then before another purpose. So this is my presentation about what's the condition of life sentence in Indonesia. Thank you very much for the attention. If you want to ask me more about the presentation, you can contact me in my phone and email. Thank you very much. I give the floor back to our moderator, Miss Cheryl. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bu Eva, for the presentation. So we have already listened to presentation from speakers and our panelists too. Now we are going to Q&A session. Participants are allowed to write the question in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and ask directly to our speaker and panelists. So we will open first session Q&A, and we are expecting to have 3 questions. I think we already have more than 3 questions in the chat box. So this is the first question is from Iklima Silvi. The question is for Ma'am Van Hattem and Bu Eva, how is the problem regarding a group from in prison, including the chief warden and other members? Is there any special action for this? The group in question is in negative terms, such as extortion or violence against any prisoners. Maybe we can hear the opinion from Ma'am Van Hattem first.
I had to look where the question was put. I see it now. How is the problem regarding a group formed in prison, including the chief warden and other members? Is there any special action? The group in question is in negative terms, such as extortion. A group formed in prison. I don't know exactly what is meant. If I don't know, in the Netherlands, the life prisoners are they are treated as other prisoners. They are in the same prisons. But there are very few. There are only 50, and there are 15,000 other prisoners. So there are no groups, unless well, the government puts them in a very special high security prison, because they are very high security perpetrators. Then they are in a very, very, very harsh regime with only well, not in a group at all. So I cannot answer this question. Maybe it can be more.
I think the context, Winnie, is that in Indonesia regularly there is collusion between the prison management and prisoners.
Corruption, yeah.
Yeah.
Of
And I think that in the Netherlands, I think is less likely.
It's also possible, of course, but well, because there are so few, this problem doesn't exist, and I think in Indonesia there are even fewer. So is there a reason to ask this question?
Okay, ma'am. Maybe we can ask the opinion from Bu Eva.
Well, Pak Rain, how come you get the first privilege to raise questions? You're not even our student. Yeah, I would love to hear our students raise questions, because we already have tons of questions on the Q&As. That's marvelous. I enjoy the speech, and I like to see students raise questions. So don't give Pak Rain privilege. He's not our student. He's just a visitor.
Okay, Prof.
Hey,
Then don't invite me. Don't invite me then.
Yes. Okay. But Rain, look at all the questions. I really enjoy the questions, and they raise questions to Ibu Wina and Ibu Eva. Please, Cheryl, proceed.
Yeah, Prof. Bu Eva, maybe you can give your opinion about the question.
Okay, Pak Ren knows a lot about Indonesia, so he wants to answer the question first. Klima, your question is, how is the problem regarding a group formed in prison, including the ship or the ship warden and other member? Is there any special action for this? This group in questioning is negative terms such as extortion and violence against the prisoner. Okay, in my opinion, why Iklima say like that? Because perhaps she already read in magazine or newspaper or the mass media, another mass media, about how cruel is in the prison. Many of them, many of the prisoner, the extortion or violence, because one word that we already said, with overcrowded. There are so many prisoners in our prison. So according, if you ask about extortion, I cannot give my argument because it's really sensitive, right? We don't have any proof of that. And if there is a proof with the decision, so we can say it in this forum. But if you say the violence, most of them most of the ex-prisoner that already released from the prison said that in several interview, yes, there are some violence there. But for extortion, I don't want to give my opinion in there because it needs proof, right? So the reason why it can be the violence in the prison by warden or by the prisoner themselves, it's because there is like it's really minimum facilities and there are very crowded there. So if someone to take or use the facilities and another people want to use it as well, so there will be a quarrel some in there. So maybe this is the answer for me, and this it's better for us to make or to what research on there. Yeah, I think it's so. Thank you.
Okay, Bu Eva. Okay, we still have the next question is from Husin Saidi to Mem Van Hattem. How is the international view of law enforcement of life sentences related to human rights and democracy? How is the international view of law enforcement of life sentences related to human rights and democracy? That's the question, ma'am.
The intermission. Well, for the Netherlands, it is party to the European Convention on Human Rights, and the judgments of the European Court for Human Rights are our law. They are more important than any law in the national law. They are above the national law. So we have to listen to these judgments. We have to incorporate the judgment in our law. And therefore, as I showed, the judgment in the case of Winter against the United Kingdom had a very great effect on the Dutch system, because the government had to change our policy. This policy of pardoning on this policy of pardoning that had been left in the last century, and that was forgotten in this century. The policy of pardoning didn't exist anymore, and now this pardoning procedure is not enough for to implement and to live after the Winter judgment. So we have to change the law, and there must be a review mechanism, and this review mechanism must be realistic. It must not only theoretically be able to release an offender, but also de facto, in fact. So yes, it has a direct effect, these international instruments. Also the ICCPR, also the Netherlands are party to it, but Indonesia as well. So I think this judgment from the ICCPR committee, that I also put a link on my presentation, is very important for Indonesia as well. Is that a sufficient answer?
Yes, I think it's sufficient. Okay, maybe we can go to the third question. It addressed to Miss Eva. This is, I think, from Farhan Zulfahmi and Husin Saidi. How effective is law enforcement regarding life sentences in Indonesia, Miss Eva?
The question is from Farhan Zulfahmi from Faculty of Law USU. The question is, what is the negative side of life imprisonment in Indonesia? When we want to talk about negative side for the prisoner, of course there are a lot of them. It is because life sentence or imprisonment itself is the purpose is to give the punish to make themselves in the situation with their their independent or to do what they want to do. It's very, very, bad for the prisoner as well. So, but we want to talk about negative side of life imprisonment or life sentence itself. Most of the negative with the life imprisonment or life sentence itself, the first is make the prison is overcrowded. This is the first. And not all of us agree with the life sentence, although the life sentence is still retained in Indonesia and even in penal code bill. But willy-nilly, it must be imposed to the prisoner. The life sentence is imposed to the prisoner. But in some of the research that I read before, they explain that the negative side of the life imprisonment or life sentence. The first is to make them back in the sexual harassment or become LGBT. This is the research result. And the second one is the main idea of the sentencing, especially in the imprisonment, is to make them become a good person and to give it back in the society. But in life imprisonment, there's not happen. Some of our expert in the criminal law said that actually the imprisonment has it has a purpose to make some the people better. But in the life imprisonment, of course, they cannot be in the society again. So this is the bad side for me. And another result that has been found by the researcher. There are several negative side from the life imprisonment. So maybe perhaps there are two of them that I can explain.
Can I also answer this question?
Okay, with pleasure, Dr. Winnie.
Well, as I told you, in the past century, there was a policy of pardoning life sentences, and almost 100% of offenders who had got a life sentence was pardoned, and they did not what's it called? There was no recidivism. They did not continue to be a threat to society. They had become, that is answer to the effectiveness. They had become good citizens, and they could join society after about 17 years in the past century. So I want to answer about to the question how effective it was effective in my view, if used very precisely, and if you make this difference between LWOP and LWP, you have to life does not just mean life until you die. Life also can mean a way to put somebody who's very dangerous for society into prison for a long and indefinite time, and to release him after you have it has been shown by medical researches and so on that he's not a threat anymore. So yeah, about the effectiveness, I would say please make this difference between the kind of life sentence that is at hand in your country. And my question to Eva is: are there examples of offenders that died in prison because life sentence took so long, longer than, for example, these 50, 20 years? Do you have any information about that?
Yeah, there are some kind of life sentence that already decided in some court in Indonesia. And then I agree with Dr. Winnie, who said some of the negative sides. I want to give the additional question that life sentence is not only cause suffer the offender, but also to the family who some of Indonesia family, the man or the husband who become offender in a life sentence, they earn their money from him or her. So it goes, some of the family in Indonesia become not good in economic also.
Yeah, I understand.
Ibu Sheryl, Ibu Sheryl, ya, Bu Sheryl, Pak Rain wants to raise questions, so you should give him this opportunity now.
Okay, it goes back to the earlier discussion. I am very interested to know why the Indonesian life sentence number of people is so low. In the Netherlands, it's low. I understand that. In Indonesia, it's very low, but compared to the US, it's very, very low. So it's just so low. I have some ideas, so I also want to hear your thinking.
Okay, I will answer Rain question. Thank you, Rain. Why the life sentence as the punishment in Indonesia is really low? Because the life sentence itself in Indonesia is given to several criminal act, not for all, but several, with the massive with the massive negative side, negative impact, I say. So and then the life sentence is in Indonesia is only for several article, and then it become the alternative sentence to death penalty. So if death penalty is given to the prisoner, and then if they take the pardon from the government, it will be decrease the punishment to life sentence. So that's why it's not common. The judge not common give the life sentence in Indonesia, because the first it's only several of the criminal act, and the second one because it's only the alternative punishment to the prisoner. This is the answer, Rain.
Do you think that because you mentioned corruption, narcotics, they have
Yeah.
life sentence? But I think
they have life sentence.
there are many people with narcotics in jail who actually very short, yeah. Because I think that, like in the Netherlands, for narcotics, nobody really goes to jail other than, you know, illegal smuggling or things like that.
Shall I
Yes.
intervene? Because well, in the Netherlands, it is even for few offenses a life sentence can be imposed. Only for offenses that caused the death of somebody, not for drugs or anything. It's not possible. So there are a few offenses even than in Indonesia. And so that is not, for me, it's not the solution, that the amount of offenses. And also, yeah, alternative to death. There are very few death sentences in Indonesia, and even it is on the point of abolishment. So I can hardly believe that it's few, because it comes after a death sentence. It is second. I still do not understand it. I only can think of maybe safety measures. Maybe you can tell something about that. Are there sanctions that exist of to stay in a hospital or in a clinic for one's life to because of the threat to society? Since yeah, otherwise I can't imagine how that it is so low. For 423, I did not hear anybody say that it is not correct. So I think it's correct, 423 in 2019. That is very, very few.
I want to give my additional answer to Rain that asked about there are corruption and then narcotics criminal act. Why the sanction is so low? Maybe perhaps like that, Rain, because Indonesia knows the maximum sanction. Some of the criminal act, the maximum sanction is penalty, life imprisonment, or imprisonment. They only give the fines and light imprisonment. So if the corruption, there are a death sentence or a death penalty or a life sentence, this is the maximum. So that's why the people who become the offenders of the corruption still get 5 years or 7 years or 10 years, and also in narcotic itself. And not the article give the have to impose the life sentence of the penalty on there. So only several article and section. This is why the life sentence amount is a little bit low from the another country. This is my answer, Rain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Winnie, can it also be because of the jury system in the US that there's just more life sentences there? Or?
I don't know. I can't say it. Maybe it is. I heard every day one prison is added to the whole prison system in the United States. It is well, it's a way of life. I would say it's a way of life that, well, penalties are very important, even if it is shown that it doesn't help. It doesn't lower the crime in the United States. So you should ask an American.
Okay. Thank you, Eva. Thank you, Winnie.
Yeah, with my pleasure. Rain.
Question from Adian Angkasa, Sekolah Tinggi Hukum Bandung. The question is, if the regulation change about sentences issue.
Okay, thank you very much for Dian Angkasa from Sekolah Tinggi Hukum Bandung. It's really nice to see you from Bandung, right? Your question is, if the regulation change about life sentence, what is the right policy to change the justify of life imprisonment in Indonesia? So already give the explanation in my presentation that all of us still waiting for the new regulation of criminal code or penal code in Indonesia, and if it's already released and it's already used to all of Indonesian. So there are a little bit change from the penal code with the new penal code, Indonesia penal code as well. So from the life waiting time to get the we said decrease the punishment from a life sentence to at least 20 years imprisonment, and it's good news for us. So the right policy, it will give the it will must think by the government itself what's the better regulation to the sentence in the right regulation, because as I said before that if Indonesia still retain the life sentence in Indonesia, and when it will still exist, the government must do the maximum regulation to give maximum regulation to regulate how the prisoner can live in the prison well like that. So we, with the idea of the sentencing purpose, the balancing idea that I have told before, the idea will make our regulation better. I already give the idea, that is the balanced idea of monodualistic, balanced idea between the offender and the victim, the using idea of the double track system, the idea of elasticity or flexibility in sentencing, And another idea that I have told before, maybe this idea of the sentences purpose can make Indonesia regulation become better. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cheryl.
Thank you, Bu Eva. Bu Eva, I think we will give the last about the chance for the last question to Bu Hanifa Aziza that already raised hand, can ask directly to our speaker or panelists. Please, Bu Hanifa Aziza, you can ask directly.
Well, hello, thank you, Ms. Cheryl, for the allowed me to ask this. First of all, I would like to say hello, Madam Winnie. Goedemiddag. My name is Hanifa Aziza. I'm a student at Doctor program at University of North Sumatra, which head of master this program is Professor Ningrum Natasha. So I just want to ask that I have wrote one of your article about life sentence that you say life sentence are too cruel because based on life sentence are too cruel based on your experience because you often to visit a prison, and then based on your experience too by your father, of course, and then I've read a lot of your experience too about life sentence. So that's why you become a Forum Life Levenslag, president of Forum Life. So I want to ask you, what is the point of your point of view about life sentence? Why you say that life sentence is cruel? So which prefer life sentence, or maybe is there any alternative to punish the of this? I mean, like a criminal law. Which better? Which prefer? How we solve this problem? Do you have any opinion about that? So, before you answer my question, I would like to say heel erg bedankt for all your insight of this life sentence. I really appreciate it, and my friends, of course, too, really appreciate it. So, thanks. I just want to ask that.
Heel erg bedankt, Hanifa. As you mentioned my father, he taught me about justice and about also his opinion about how to treat prisoners and how to treat suspects. And yeah, I can talk a lot about him. He influenced me, but I think that's where it started. Now I think that a life sentence is cruel. That depends on how this life sentence is practiced, whether it is a LWOP or LWP. The LWOP, the life without parole, is putting somebody behind bars and not even thinking of him anymore. Give him food and a roof, and that's it, and forget him. And I think that's also the opinion of the European Court. Luckily, happily, I'm to hear that that it is inhuman to treat somebody inhuman. If you put somebody behind bars, you don't want to see what developments he makes, what he goes through, what it does to him, this penalty, how he feels about his crime, how he feels about the victims he made, how he feels in life, how he feels towards his father and mother. They die always when he is in prison for this takes a long time, a life sentence, or his children. Now there is this very famous case in the Netherlands of a doctor who killed his wife, and when he denied that he did it, and he got a life penalty, and then in prison he killed again in the same manner with toxic things, and he got another life penalty. He got had 2 life penalties. And he still was denying that he killed his wife. Then he got a treatment. Then there was a psychiatrist. He was who got hold on him, hold on his way of thinking. It took some years, but because of this treatment, he became he came on the surface. He at first he rejected everything. Now he understood what he did wrong. So he changed in prison. Then there were his children whose mother he had killed. And these children were also, they wanted to know more about their father. They wanted to meet him. And then the son was going to marry, and he wanted his father to be present at the marriage. So it is a very complex system if you put somebody behind bars for the rest of his life, all these things are cut off. The relation with the family, the father, the mother, the children, and the victims also. Because it is possible, in my view, to make a start with restore the I don't know the word, herstelrecht, we call it in Dutch, herstelrecht, you know the word? That I believe strong that a perpetrator can, and the victim can become, come together and talk with each other, or even shake hands, and to come to a better understanding. Reconciliation. Yeah, thank you.
It's reconciliation.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So this way of reconciliation, there are also procedures for that. Also in the government, there is a procedure. Her husband was killed by two from Brazil, and these two brothers killed her husband in the Netherlands. And she wants to come into contact with these perpetrators. They both undergo a life sentence at the moment. Well, I think it's cruel to cut it off. And I think it's cruel to cut somebody off as if he is an animal you put in bars and you don't have to do anything anymore. And that's, that's how I see it. So if there is a life sentence with the possibility of a review, like you have in Indonesia, as I understand, of Article 53, I'm really interested in that article, Eva, and I really want to have, if it's possible, your interpretation, your presentation in PDF or so. If that exists, it's okay. Huh? Of course, the overcrowdedness of prisons is not okay. But that's for all prisoners, and that also should be solved. But that's another problem. But to put somebody behind bars and not being interested anymore in what happens to him, that is cruel. Thank you for your question, and that I could say this.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Van Hatum, Bu Eva, and all participants that already asked. This is the end of the Q&A session. So we will continue to the closing speech from the Secretary of Doctoral Degree Program, Bu Devi, Bu Tengku Kezerina Devi Azwar. Please welcome Bu Devi.
Thank you, Cheryl. Well, we have come to the end of the program of our webinar. On behalf of the doctorate program of Faculty of Law, Universitas Sumatera Utara, I would like to thank Wien. Thank you, Wien, to present your paper, your findings on life sentences and how it is in Netherlands. I hope it will broaden our students' mind on this point. And then also thank you for Eva. Eva, we are very proud of you today that you have do research and presented your point of view as well from the Indonesian point of view. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Dr. Yati, as the head of the webinar project, this webinar. And also, I also would like to thank Rain. Thank you, Rain, to connect us with Wien. It is a very fruitful connection. I hope that when we go to the Netherlands, we can meet Wien.
Oh,
Okay, thank you.
when you go to Leiden, yeah?
Yeah, to go to Leiden. And also, in here, I would like to thank Hanifah Aziza with Dasar Hukum to promote this webinar so that a lot of people from other faculty also attending this. We hope that this collaboration can also be promoting in other webinars as well. Thank you, everybody. See you on the next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Bu
you.
Devi.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So we hope all the participants enjoy the discussion. I would like to invite all participants to turn on the camera so we can have some documentation and also virtual photo group shoot. Please turn on your camera, participant, please. Yeah. Okay, I will take the picture, yeah.
Okay.
The first. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay. The second one, give your best smile. And the last one, give your best smile, please. Okay. This is the end session for today. So happy to have all of you here. To Mem Fanhatum, Bu Eva, and all participants. Have a good day and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Fanhatum.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Wien.
Ray.
Thank you, thank you.
Rain.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, great program. Thank you very much. We look forward for everybody to participate again in our next topic. Thank you, Eva. Great presentation.
Bye.
Thank you, Win. Thank you, Rin.
See you, Joy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.